Alright, in this video we're going to go over some general maintenance tips and kind of a good way to easily kind of maintain your log files and hopefully just fine-tune things a little bit with SBM. If you've used SBM for any amount of time, you know that there's quite a few log files that get generated for various things, and sometimes support will ask for these log files, and the way you would go about getting the log files to support is to go into configurator, and you would click this button down here. It says collect log files, and what that does behind the scenes is it gathers up all the log files in the system, creates a zip file that you would then send to support. So sometimes you end up with a zip file that's really large and no apparent reason why, and so that's what that tool is for. But you can also use that collect log files as kind of just a general maintenance helper. And what I like to do is just hit the collect log files in configurator, save the file to somewhere, your desktop or something, and here's one here from this computer. And what I like to do is just unzip it and just let's take a look at the contents of it, what actually happens. So just going through this a little bit, these file names look a little archaic, but they really do mean something. What this means is this is the folder structure down to this log. So in this case, we're going to find the application engine folder .log, and then here's the file name. Okay, so if we look in our file system where we have SBM installed, we will see these things. So if we go to, here's app engine, and then we go to log, and then here's all the IIRF files here. Alright, and if we scroll down further, there's another one here called common and Tomcat. So anyway, that same kind of file structure. So common, Tomcat 7. If you were using an older version of SBM, this would be JBoss. Server, default, logs. That's where most of these ones are going to be. So the oddball one, if you're looking at the zip file, are these ones called config utility. That folder exists. This folder right here gets created dynamically when you hit the collect log files. So it exists while this thing's being built, then it gets deleted, so you won't find these Mongo dump folders. But for what we're doing, don't worry about that too much. Okay, so that's just a way to get all the logs in one fell swoop. And so this is an example of a fairly normal, I guess you would say, zip file. None of these files look extremely large. The one that is the biggest is this one down here. It's 21 meg. No big deal. This is active diagnostics output, and you'll notice that most of these log files, there's just one of them, and I'll show you an example here in a minute of what we're going to do a little cleanup on another one. But this one I would say is perfectly normal, and depending on how big the active diagnostics file is, you know, this file's zipped up only 5 meg, so I wouldn't worry about this. This is fine. This one here, we'll unzip it. Now this is one of our customers probably, or something, I'm not sure where it came from, but it's a good example of how we can do some cleanup. So this one is 7.7 gig, so we're going to unzip this and take a look at how we can do a little cleaning. So this could take a second. I'll just pause this while it unzips. Okay, so that zip file unzipped. So now when we look at this, what I like to do is just make this column a little wider, and we're going to scroll down here. And so the size of these are pretty decent, nothing too glaring. But when we scroll down, and here's a prime candidate of something we can fix. So this ns.log, this is actually the notification log. It's not really important what these logs are right now, but the point of this is, notice how this is going from ns log, and then it puts a 1, and it's rolling all the way down to 22. So In older versions of SBM, we didn't cap the amount of these logs. In newer versions, it stops at 5. But in older versions, it would just keep going and going and going, and you could have 100 in here. Okay, and if you open one of these logs up and look at the date, I mean, some of these dates are going to be, it could be months back, could be years back. So clearly this stuff is junk and you don't need it. But the problem is every time you do a collect log files, it's still collecting these really old files. So what you would do is go to the actual file system, right, where we just talked about, common Tomcat server, to this logs folder, and simply delete all these old ones. Okay, I usually just keep like maybe 1 through 5 or nothing through 5. Never going to look at these old things. I mean, if you're one of those people that doesn't like to delete things, just move them out of this folder so they don't just keep getting collected all the time. So there's, whatever that 17 items times 5 meg a piece. So there's, quite a bit of space right there. Another candidate here is server.log. Now this one, like I said, is stopping at 5 for this version. If you had upgraded from older versions that didn't ever cap this, these are 10 meg a piece, and I've seen customers folders where they'll have 30 of these in here, going back 3, 4, 5 years. So go ahead and just again go into this folder and just delete 6 through whatever. Save a bunch of hard drive space, and every time you do your collect log files, it's just going to be a lot smaller, faster, and easier to send to support if you need help. Here's another example here. This one's going through 5. I mean, you can open up these files, throw it into a notepad or textpad, and just take a look at the dates. I mean, we're in 2016. This is a year old. I'm never going to go back and look at a log a year old. That's not going to tell me anything. So, safe to say you could just get rid of it. So if we scroll down further, another good example is this file here is quite large. It's about 8 gig. Again, so this is the active diagnostic stuff. If we look in configurator, this right here, this field sets the limit of the active diagnostics log, and by default, in newer versions, by default it will max out at 3 gig, and it just keeps rolling. So this one just appends to itself at 3 gig. In older versions of SBM, the max was the default max was 8 gig. So you could, if you come from an old version, you could technically have a really large file here, and if you just wanted to, if you're not having problems or whatever, you're not trying to diagnose anything, you can actually just click the empty logs right here, and you don't even have to click apply down here, just empty logs, and it'll start this thing over at 0, and it'll make that much smaller. So another good thing to do is, while you're in here, so you've unzipped this file, and just kind of take a look at it, see if you see any that are really crazy large, or you have a lot of them. The other thing, what I ran into a while back with a customer is I had them send these logs in. We noticed 2 logs in here were about 2 gig each, and what it came down to was they had turned on some debugging like 2 years ago for some other problem they were having, and they forgot to turn this off. So this debugger was never going to stop, and the file would just keep getting bigger and bigger until it either A, wouldn't write to it anymore, or B, the hard drive filled up and they were going to have a really bad problem one day. So the point of it is you can simply do this collect log files, grab everything at one fell swoop, and just take a look and get a real good idea of any maintenance you might need to do, or deleting any log files that are just getting out of control. So like I say, there's just no reason to have this stuff even living in here, and it just will save you when you do collect log files or just hard drive space in general. Another weird one you're going to see a lot is this upgrade messages. So we log when you do upgrades. If you've been a customer for a really long time and you've been upgrading for a really long time, you're probably going to have you could have who knows how many of these log files in here. You know, these are the dates on them, 2015. Do you really care about the upgrade log from a year or two ago? Doubt it. So you could just delete those. You know, for the most part, everything else I would just leave. But it's a good way to do some spring cleaning and just in general maintenance. You can do collect log files on, you know, all of your SBM computers, and just do maintenance on each one. I don't know, set a reminder and do it once or twice a year, something like that, maybe more if you have a lot. And anyway, hopefully this video helps somebody, and that's it.